Now.
My shot, man.
Sorry. Oh my God.
Hey, welcome, sports fans, to this Inside Sports production of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and we're cranking it up a notch this year. Right now, we're going to do the conference preview, so the AFC and the NFC, because the NFL season is coming up. But just to let you know, I'm in a makeshift studio right now. We're going to bigger and better things. And by the way, we're going to have a fantasy football segment coming up every week once the regular season starts. And then also, for you Hoops fans, we have Gerald Glassford and Anthony Barbarin are going to be bringing you all the best from the NBA every week. So Inside Sports definitely taking it up a notch this year. You can find us, follow on Twitter at The Inside Sports. And in just a moment here, I'm going to introduce my co-host for NFL Football Talk. Many of you follow him on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. And if not, you should be. He just has some dynamite insights into all of sports, but especially the NFL. So here he is from an undisclosed location somewhere in sweltering hot Southern California, Chris Lardieri, the pride of Rutgers University. How you doing out there, man?
Charles, it's great to be back for another season. Thank you for yet another terrific introduction. And sweltering is an understatement. I think I'm sweating through every pore of my body the last few days, but TMI. All
right. And, the one word, a couple words of advice here, microfiber underwear. That's all I have to say about that. We won't let the conversation digress or anything.
Indeed.
Okay, so, you're going to be the one who's really hosting the fantasy football segment for everybody. So you want to tease that a little bit for us out there?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the new and expanded role. Thank you, by the way. There are a lot of experts out there. I don't pretend to be one. However, I do play fantasy football. And what I hope to do on a week-to-week basis is give you my insights, whether it be from my team, what I see in the league, or what I watch. I'm not going to give you my mock draft, my proposed rankings, etc. Matter of fact, I've got my draft tomorrow. I play in a 14-team league with the big boys, and I have the number 4 pick. Essentially, I'd say that the top 1 through 5 picks are probably all going to be some combination: David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, OBJ, in whatever order. What I will say is don't overthink it. You need to build depth. Don't go take your favorite quarterback. If you're a Cowboys fan, don't take Dak Prescott in the first round. With Ezekiel Elliott being suspended, that's another issue to take into account. If you do want to get him, make sure you get his backup, Darren McFadden. Things like that. And also, too, I can't overemphasize this so much. It's so important. Do not take a kicker or a defense in the middle of the draft. You can wait. I guarantee you by the end of the year, you'll be flipping through guys on the waiver wire. So just a few pieces of advice. Build your depth. There's a lot of quarterback depth this year. You can wait until the middle rounds and pick up someone like a Derek Carr or even a Matthew Stafford. They're going to get you points. Aaron Rodgers is great, but if you don't get him, it's not the end of the world. So thank you for the inaugural fantasy football segment. I have no website. I have to promote. I have no rankings to sell you. Good luck this year.
All right, we'll have to figure out some way to really merchandise this thing, but we'll talk off camera about that. So let's go ahead and get into we'll do the conference preview. So the AFC, where we have the reigning New England Patriots, and we'll see if anybody can possibly take them down. But let's go ahead and we're going to start in the South, and we're going to end up in the East is the way that we're going to go, because the South is a little intriguing, although, there's so many caveats there. So if we look at the quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota, he's going to be back from injury, so he'll be leading the Tennessee Titans. Of course, he's got DeMarco Murray in the backfield with him there. And then Tom Savage, I guess the job is his to lose there in Houston with the Texans. And Andrew Luck, he may play, he may not play. How many games? We don't know. And then Blake Bortles, who is anchoring, we'll call it that, anchoring the Jacksonville Jaguars after narrowly edging out Chad Henne in the preseason. So that just kind of shows you the way things are there in Jacksonville. But Jacksonville does have good defense. It seems like if they could get a good signal caller, they might be able to do something. But, Chris, what's your take on this division? We're talking AFC South here.
I think it is fairly wide open with the exception of Jacksonville. I really, with Bortles at quarterback, you said he's anchoring. I think that's a sinking ship if he's anchoring it. But I do like, Tom Coughlin's kind of taking control of the reins there. Doug Marrone back coaching in the NFL. They've got talent. Leonard Fournette looks like he could have a breakout year as a rookie, but really I feel bad. As long as Bortles on that team, his own teammates aren't happy. I think ultimately it's going to come down to one of two teams. I really like Tennessee, the way they've developed Marcus Mariota in his third year. Everyone talks about Jameis Winston, star of Hard Knocks, but he quietly has improved year after year. He's got some more targets there with Decker and the drafting of Corey Davis. They got a nice 1-2 punch at running back. The offensive line's really good. I think this is a team on the rise. The team that I think that'll really contend with them is the Texans. That defense is phenomenal. You've got Watt on one side, back healthy. I really think that Tom Savage, as sick and crazy as this says, and forgive me in advance, is an upgrade over Brock Osweiler. Now, will he win him a Super Bowl? No. But I know DeAndre Hopkins, for one, is happy that he's back. And then you look at the Colts, and really, as they go, as Andrew Luck goes, and it doesn't look good he's even going to play the first week or two of the season. That team could potentially be a train wreck without him. So I think it's going to be a dogfight between the Titans and the Texans in an interesting race.
Yeah, I think so. And you talk about the Colts, and we have Andrew Luck, who is basically, billed as Aaron Rodgers. He's pretty much Aaron Rodgers light because, he's not at that level, and also he can't stay healthy. And from what I understand, that shoulder injury has people talking about him possibly sitting out even more games. So we'll see what happens, because I guess he has the same type of a shoulder problem that Cam Newton does, which we'll get to that when we do our NFC preview. But, yeah, there could be tough times ahead there in Indianapolis. I see this as really a two-horse race, the same as you do. I'm going to go with I like the way Tennessee is going, even though, their defense is obviously not as strong as Houston, but I do like Tennessee. I like the development of Mariota, and also with Murray in the backfield there. I think that should be enough. So I'm going to go with, if we have got to pick division winners, I'm going Titans here. What do you think?
Yep. I think it's appropriate. Given the barking in the background, you're going with the underdog. And you know what? We'll get to this later, but I'm going to agree with you. I think this is a year the Titans make their move. Okay,
there we go. So we both agree on the Titans. Now we'll go to the North, where Big Ben, this could be his last stand for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe Flacco at the signal caller in Baltimore. He's coming off back surgery. Should be ready to go in week 1. And then also Andy Dalton, the red rifle there in Cincinnati. We'll see what he's going to do. And starting for the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Kaiser. This will be the 27th starting quarterback they've had since the franchise was resurrected in 1999. How do you see this one?
Another mess in Cleveland. I mean, I really feel bad for the fans there, but I'm not going to waste yours or anyone else's time, cellar dweller there. What's interesting is Baltimore's got a lot of injuries. If Flacco can get back healthy with the signing of Jeremy Maclin, and I do think their defense could be a potential sleeping giant in the NFL and really keep them in games. And then you've got the ever underachieving Cincinnati Bengals. I know you have tremendous amounts of love for Andy Dalton. A.J. Green, I still, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. What I think is interesting is you've got at running back the drafting of the controversial Joe Mixon out of Oklahoma. If he can keep his head on straight, I think right there is speaking even from fantasy football perspective, is a player that could break out this year. But ultimately, I think this is a Steelers division to lose. Le'Veon Bell taking his extended sabbatical to sign his contract. I believe he reports on Friday the 1st. He'll be well rested. You've got Martavius Bryant back. Ben's got a lot of weapons. If this is his last hurrah, I think he's going to enjoy it. I still say this is the Steelers division to lose.
Yeah, I think so. And then the other thing is, remember, they picked up cornerback Joe Hayden, who was basically he was a star there in Cleveland, but he's tailed off in the last few seasons. But I got to wonder with Hayden, if he's going to go to Pittsburgh and finally he has a chance to win, because in Cleveland he was wasting away there. The team was horrible. And here he is as their top corner. He's got to chase around the likes of Antonio Brown and A.J. Green 4 times a year with really no chance of winning. So he probably got a little bit beaten down there in Cleveland, or should we say a lot beaten down. So I look for him to have a resurrection of his career, and I think he'll anchor that Steelers defensive backfield. And really that should be enough to give the Steelers the division here. And when we look at Cincinnati, Vontaze Burfict, who's a talented linebacker, but his problem is I think he'd rather take a cheap shot on anyone than win a game. So here he took a cheap shot in the preseason. He's suspended for 3 games. with just for an unnecessary hit on a defenseless player. So he's suspended for 3 games. That's definitely going to hurt them. And, hey, you know, we know the whole thing in Cleveland. So I think this is Pittsburgh also.
Yeah, definitely. And until, honestly, you know, I don't want anyone to lose their jobs, but I think if there's another year of underachieving and missing the playoffs, we could see a change of command there in Cincinnati. Marvin Lewis really has been a Teflon coach for years.
There we go. So we both agree with we're going with Pittsburgh Steelers to take the AFC North. Let's go ahead and go to the AFC West. We've got some intrigue there. We've got the San Diego Chargers, anchored by Phillip Rivers at quarterback yet again.
Hold on, you made the same mistake everyone in the media does, Charles. They're our team. They're the Los Angeles Chargers. How dare you? Listen, I do it all the time.
I cannot get past that.
No one can. They don't belong here.
Yeah, judging by the amount of fans who showed up at their preseason games, I don't think the fans are really getting it either.
No.
But also we got Derek Carr. He's going to be back, hopefully healthy, the whole year there in Oakland. Trevor Siemian is going to be the signal caller there in Denver. And also Denver picking up Jamal Charles at running back. And now Demaryius Thomas is saying that he thinks that Trevor Siemian, if he limits mistakes, he can get them to the Super Bowl. We don't know if Mr. Lardieri thinks that or not. We'll find out in a moment. And then, of course, the venerable Alex Smith anchoring the Kansas City Chiefs. So what do you think there, man?
I think this will be one of the most competitive divisions in football, and I know there are some out there who think the team with the same initials as the LA Clippers might make a move. I really don't. This team has just been beset by injuries. I think they'll be improved over last year. They're really a hard luck team, but at the end of the day, losing your top pick, Mike Williams, losing Forrest Lamp, one of the greatest names in football history on the offensive line, those things are going to hurt. And ultimately, we know what happens. Phillip Rivers loves to throw the game away late in the game, and honestly, I don't trust him. I think the Broncos will be improved. Siemian is an improvement. The problem with him is, can he stay on his feet and not get injured? I know they had some issues last year. Paxton Lynch isn't grasping the offense, so I don't think anyone in Denver wants him as a starter. So I think this turns into a 2-horse race between Andy Reid, the greatest coach until the calendar flips into a new year and January hits, and the resurgent Oakland, soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders. There's a lot of talk. I know there's a lot of optimism in Oakland with Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, coming home to play one final hurrah. A lot of people are criticizing their defense and their line up the middle, but I think they're the team to beat. With a healthy Derek Carr, I think they go deep into the playoffs last year. Khalil Mack had an off year. You know that's not going to happen again. Michael Crabtree had a great year, but Amari Cooper is poised to bounce back. And I just think top to bottom they have more talent. And while I do like the Chiefs, I think Tyreek Hill will emerge now that he's a wide receiver and not just a kick returner. Ultimately, at the end of the day, would you rather have Derek Carr or Alex Smith? So I'm going with the Raiders here.
Yeah, that's true. The Raiders are looking strong. And one note on San Diego with them moving to L.A., and I think what happened is when we look at the whole fan base thing, a lot of L.A. is a very polarizing city and community, and I think there were a lot of fans who were fans of the Chargers who are not fans of the city of L.A., and a lot of people that you talk to who are Chargers fans, they would tell you, I don't root for any LA teams. Now the Chargers moved to LA, so they're left with a dilemma. So it's kind of like that, having that girlfriend that you love to see when she comes into town, and then all of a sudden she moves actually right down the block from you and ain't so good anymore. So I think that's kind of what happened there with the Chargers. But I agree with you with the Raiders. I do think Denver could give them a really good run for their money. If Trevor Siemian, with Jamal Charles in the backfield there, and with the defense as strong as it is, if Trevor Siemian can do a good Brad Johnson impression here, I think he can get them to win this division. But those games between those two teams are going to be fantastic. I'm going with, I think I wrote down my pick here. I'm going with Oakland also. But don't be surprised if Denver sneaks in the back door.
Yeah, the only problem is when you merge Good and Brad Johnson together, does that mean slightly below average? I'm not sure. We'll have to check on that. And then one thing, too, to keep in mind, with Wade Phillips on a defensive coordinator in L.A. with the Rams, I'm wondering if he's going to be missed. I know Vance Joseph's a defensive-minded coach, but that's something to keep your eye on to see how that D adjusts without Phillips.
Definitely. So we're both going with Oakland there. So let's see if we get any action in the AFC East, with Jay Cutler coming to quarterback the Dolphins, we'll see if that makes any type of a difference there. Of course, Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, is still there with the Patriots, 40 years old and going strong, coming off a miraculous Super Bowl win. And then we've got who is quarterbacking the Jets, by the way, this year.
Oh, it's the great Josh McCown. How could you forget?
Yeah, Josh McCown. And Tyrod Taylor now, who is the starter in Buffalo, I guess barely edging out Nathan Peterman. We'll see, but, you know, they traded away Sammy Watkins, his best wide receiver. He's now in Los Angeles. Then they signed Anquan Bolden. Bolden was there for one day and then retired. So it seems like same old Buffalo Bills. But I'd say this division, we won't even debate whether or not New England's going to win this division. Even though Julian Edelman is down with an ACL injury, I don't think that's going to be enough to knock him from that top spot. But, hey, and not just because it's my favorite team, but you kind of got to look at the most intriguing thing about the division is the Dolphins, with Tannehill gone for the year, picking up Jay Cutler, who came out of that brief retirement, and what he can do for the Dolphins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think ultimately the Patriots win this division. The good news is that your Dolphins have locked up second place in what is otherwise an atrocious division. Ironically, and I know how you feel about Tannehill. I mean, as sick as it sounds, I think Cutler might be a slight improvement, or at the very least a wash. And playing the offense is definitely going to help. I don't think there'll be much of a learning curve there. He's got weapons. He's got a good defense. So I think you could be looking at a potential wild card run. But even without Edelman, I do think the trade for Brandon Cooks is really going to help. If Gronk is really healthy, like he says he is, he's essentially a wide receiver at times with the way Brady targets him. So I do think they'll miss Edelman. I don't think it'll come into account until January and potentially February. I mean, you look at that phenomenal catch he made in the Super Bowl. You can't tell me they're not going to miss his hands in the playoffs.
Exactly. Then they did everything they did last year without Gronk. You know, he was Gronk's not healthy. They still find ways to win. So, hey, much props to the Patriots. I think they take this division again for every year since that year that Tom Brady was injured and Matt Castle started, I guess. But they're definitely going to win this division. So let's go ahead and also remember Jay Ajayi in the backfield. I think that's going to go a long way to determine how the Dolphins do. But we both picked the Patriots, so now we've previewed the divisions. AFC, one of two teams will go to the Super Bowl, and which team would you have as a dark horse?
Well, I'm gonna stick with the Patriots. I know it's playing the chalk. Whether they get to the Super Bowl or not, I don't know. But I know the conventional money says they do. I think the Raiders make a run. I think the Raiders could give them a game, and I do think with the way things shake out, as long as Carr's leg is fine and that arm's chugging along, I think they can make at least a run to the AFC Championship game. My dark horse, I mean, I picked them to win the division. The Titans, don't fall asleep on them. I really think that they're not going to be a one and done. I mean, they could even make some noise going into the playoffs. Normally I'd pick the Steelers, but I've got to be honest with you. Watching what Mike Tomlin does year after year, I think they're a great team. I think they got a ton of talent. When push comes to shove, the guy gets out coached. So not on my list due to coaching.
Okay. Well, I got to go with – I'm going with the Patriots to get back, or the Steelers, I think it will be. And like I said, I think that Joe Hayden's going to make a huge difference in that defensive secondary. And then – my dark horse, if you will, is going to be the Raiders. If it's not the Steelers or the Patriots to get there, I think the Raiders go ahead and break through this year, despite any weaknesses they may have. Short yardage situations, they've got beast mode now. So if you're on the goal line, all they got to do is give it to him. They won't have to risk throwing a slant pass across the middle and getting it intercepted or anything, because he's still a great short yardage back. We don't know how much he's got in the tank for the whole game, but he's taking that secondary role, and with him being able to just go in when they really need him, the Raiders are going to be a force.
Definitely. And, if he gets tired, they could fill him up with candy on the sideline and recharge his battery.
The Rainbow Candy, whose name I cannot mention because they did not pay us a royalty to mention the name on the air.
Correct.
Okay, there you go. So that's NFL football talk for you. Remember, Charles E. Smith Jr., you can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L. Sports, and we're going to go ahead and preview the NFC as well. But Chris, before we sign off, any final comments for everybody?
Sure. Hitting on a theme we touched on earlier, got two NFL teams in LA, and no one seems to care. The Rams were hideous last year. I know there's room for optimism, trading for Watkins, having Sean McVay, the youngest coach in the NFL. It can only get better. I mean, as you saw in Hard Knocks and the Amazon series, All or Nothing, Jeff Fisher really had little or no charisma. The fact that he kept his job this long was amazing to me. And then you got the Chargers, who can't even sell out a 28,000 seat soccer stadium. And, really, I got to be honest with you, talking with people, there's not much interest in the Chargers. There's still some in the Rams. You've got the legacy, the diehards. I went down to training camp, my son and my father-in-law this year. They're still Rams fan. They're keeping the faith. It's more a function of a losing team. But I really think this Charger move was nothing more about money, which it usually is. But essentially, the Spanoses are trading up because they're moving to a zip code with a higher average home price per se, and that's going to do nothing but add value to that team. So whether they're just looking to make more money down the road or potentially sell the team, that's all this was about. And they don't care about their fans, as we know. But the LA market, like you said, is very unique, and I don't see how they're going to catch on, being the proverbial Jets to the Giants in that new stadium the Rams are building in Inglewood.
No, there you go. Okay, everybody, remember every week through the season, then when we get to the regular season, we will have the latest in the NFL news. We'll also have the Pick 7. We'll pick the 5 most intriguing games, and then we'll have our fantasy football segment. That'll be coming up. So for Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. Thank you for watching NFL Football Talk. We'll see you next time. Ready for NFC preview?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inside Sports makeshift studio here. We're upgrading, so for now, this is the way it is. So I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. I'll be hosting, and the show this week is NFL Football Talk. We bring you all the best. Right now, we're going to be doing the NFC preview for this upcoming 2017 season. As you know, I don't work alone here. I do enlist the help of the very, very best. So without any further ado, let me introduce the man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. And here he is from somewhere in very hot and sweaty Southern California, Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man?
Charles, great to be back. Thanks for another phenomenal introduction. And remember, it's a dry heat.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's true. This heat in New York or in the South would be just god-awful. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to talk about the NFC West, and we're going to take all the divisions, then pick winners at the end, who might go to the Super Bowl, who might not, the biggest flops, the biggest surprises. But NFC West, okay, the Seattle Seahawks, always strong. Russell Wilson at quarterback there. The defense is really pretty much as strong as it always has been. Carson Palmer anchoring the Arizona Cardinals, and they're getting their strength back on defense. Patrick Peterson will be joined by Tyrann Mathieu again this year as Matthew comes back from that injury. Jared Goff and the LA Rams, trying to do this, that, and the other, changing the coach. Will Todd Gurley get back on track as a running back? Bring in Sammy Watkins to bolster the wide receiving core. We'll see what happens there. And then up in NorCal, where they're having, as they say up there, hella problems with their team, Matt Barkley and Brian Hoyer at quarterback to try to do a, what would you say, a resurrection of the franchise there maybe, even though they were on top not that long ago. But Chris, we got to know what you think about the NFC West.
Look, we 49ers and the Rams are also Rams, and while they have done changing at coach, and I think it'll go Shanahan and McVay respectively, really they're going to be fighting for the bottom and who gets out of it. Two-horse race between the Seahawks and the Cardinals, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of optimism with Seattle. They think Russell Wilson's healthy, but ultimately for me, they have the same issues. The defense, especially Richard Sherman, can't stand Russell Wilson. The running game's never been addressed since Beast Mode left, and there are holes in the offensive line, which led to Wilson getting injured. Therefore, I'm going to go out on a limb and pick the Cardinals. Everything's an if. Carson Palmer can stay upright and not get hurt. This is a team last year. They were 7-8-1. They lost a number of games due to the since departed Chandler Cannizzaro forgetting how to kick, Roberto Aguayo style. They brought in Phil Dawson this year. That's an improvement. I really think on the defensive side of the ball, like you met, they've added some pieces. You've got Matthew back at 100%, Peterson. The D-line's always good. And look, I think they've got one of the budding superstars in the NFL at running back in David Johnson. And he's a force to be reckoned with, both running and catching the ball. And I think he really emerges this year. I think it'll be a good race again. But at the end of the day, I'm putting my faith on the jockey, and his name is Bruce Arians. I think he motivates that team for one more run.
I'm just trying to picture Bruce Arians as a jockey, by the way. That's anyways.
Yeah, not on a horse.
But if that's the horse you want to ride, man, I understand it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I do like the analysis here. I'm interested. To me, the Rams are the most intriguing team here because Goff, with his tiny doll hands, is he finally going to be able to get things done? And I don't expect much out of the Niners. That's going to be a train wreck. We all know it already. But it's down to the little intangibles with the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. And to me, I like the Cardinals, but the Seahawks seem to be able to get things done. Russell Wilson, even though this different of stature, but he can get things done kind of the way what Aaron Rodgers does with the Packers. So just Seattle, because of their resourcefulness, I'm going to go with Seattle to win this division. But I do expect Arizona to bounce back. It's going to be a nice two-team race here, but I like Seattle.
It's about time we differ, Charles.
There we go. Okay, so let's go over to the NFC East, possibly the best batch of quarterbacks here, where Dak Prescott will be back to anchor the Dallas Cowboys, Eli Manning with the New York Giants, Kirk Cousins, the modern-day Dave Craig. He's going to be quarterbacking the Washington Redskins, and Carson Wentz there in Philadelphia still playing well. So we'll see what happens. Now, I think one of the caveats we talk about, Ezekiel Elliott, he's suspended for the Cowboys. Will it be, how many games is it going to be? But I think when it comes down to it, Dak having to play without Elliott, that's probably going to cost him the division when all is said and done.
Yeah, I completely agree. If it's suspended, that's a team you think would be the front runner for this division. And as we saw last year on the defensive side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers exposed that team in the playoffs, and I think you've got to be concerned about that as well. I don't think they've addressed the holes that they have there. Had a great year last year coming out of nowhere, but I think they revert back to the mean. Ultimately, I think it comes down to the other three teams. Like everyone knows, my love for the New York Giants is well documented, but I do have my apprehensions about them this year. OBJ coming into the season with an ankle injury. They did get Brandon Marshall, but ultimately Eric Flowers is going to be a thorn in the side for Giants fans again this year. They have not addressed the line. Defense is always solid, even though Rodgers torched them in the playoffs towards the end of the second half of that game. They hung for a while, but I think ultimately they've got to be the team to beat, and I just think Eli's durable. Probably going to be another one of these 9-7 type years that wins the division. That said, I think the Eagles will be improved. Carson Wentz coming into his second year. But yet again, is LeGarrette Blount the answer at running back? I really don't know. I think the defense has made improvements. But that's a team to watch out for. They could sneak up on someone. The Redskins, look, I love your Kirk Cousins analogy. With that logic, if he's Dave Craig, does that mean Josh Norman will someday get up there in Canton and say Kirk Cousins belongs in the Hall of Fame? I don't think so, and I hope not. But regardless, Kirk's in another one of his one-year contract years looking to prove himself to either go play for the Rams or 49ers next year. But they've lost a lot of guys. I know they brought in Terrell Pryor. You've got Rob Kelly at running back, had a decent year. But, again, defensive side of the ball, can the Redskins stop anyone? Not optimistic. It's kind of a lesser of all evils. I'm going with the Giants, not as a homer pick, just purely off of factual evidence and the fact that OBJ is getting special treatment in Phoenix separate of the Giants staff.
Yeah, I think so. And, I'll say this. I'm going with the Giants as well. If Ezekiel Elliott was going to be playing all year long for the Cowboys, I would go with the Cowboys. I'll go ahead and say that, but it's not going to be, and I think that's going to be the difference. That'll allow the Giants to take the division. But the best thing is when I look at these are going to be the best maybe set of divisional games that we'll have, although the NFC South is pretty strong too. But when I look at all the matchups, whether it's Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Redskins, Eagles, however you mix it, those games are all going to be dogfights, and they're going to be fun to watch.
Definitely, and a lot of times, look at last year, the Giants split with the Eagles, and even when the Eagles were struggling late in the year, none of those games are gimmies, and they do make for must watch football. But ultimately, if the Giants can sweep one of those divisional games, they'll be in the driver's seat. But you know, the black and blue division of the NFL, it definitely is.
Yep, there we go. So let's go ahead and head over to the NFC North. Of course, Aaron Rodgers, the future Hall of Famer, is going to be under center again for the Green Bay Packers. And then we got Sam Bradford, who's going to be playing for Minnesota, while Teddy Bridgewater suffered that horrible injury last year, and he's not even got – they don't know if he'll even play this season. So tough luck there in Minnesota. And Matt Stafford, armed with a huge, ridiculous contract. He's still there in Detroit. And then we'll go ahead with, Mike Glennon taking that other quarterback spot there. So what do you think about this one? With the Chicago Bears, Chicago Bears, Mike Glennon at quarterback for the departed Jay Cutler.
Yeah, vintage Bears. Let's sign Mike Glennon to a big deal and then trade up to draft Mitch Trubisky out of left field and fool everyone. Look, they'll be the cellar dwellers this year. I really don't think we even need to hit on that. From a fantasy football perspective, Jordan Howard, very impressive in his rookie year, is a good pick if you need a running back there. A guy runs hard, and I think he's going to be running a lot with whoever's quarterbacking that team. Look, I like the Vikings if Sam Bradford's not the quarterback. You know, maybe even a healthy Bridgewater in a perfect world is better than Bradford. They got an excellent defense. Again, looking from a fantasy perspective, watch out for Dalvin Cook. I know they signed Latavius Murray. This guy was a stud at Florida State. Expect big things from him. I think he'll help. They'll miss Adrian Peterson, but they've got Younger in the backfield, which will definitely help. You go to the Lions, and look, Lions are stuck in a rock and a hard place. Matt Stafford gets a lot of blame, and he's getting paid a lot of money. But what do? Would you rather be the Jets or the Browns, or lock up a known commodity? Again, the issue is you've got a revolving door at running back with a lot of injuries in the defense. And, hate to be so blunt, Jim Caldwell as coach is always a liability. So I think they could be in the wild card mix if the chips fall right and Stafford doesn't break a limb or finger or anything. But this is the Packers division to win. I think Ty Montgomery emerged as a running back last year. He's an upgrade over our buddy Eddie Lacy, who's now in Seattle. As long as Aaron Rodgers is quarterbacking a team, I don't care who's playing receiver, how porous their defense is or gets criticized for. That guy is just a winner, and he takes teams that have no business even being in the playoffs sometimes and gets them to win. So I think this is a manageable division for them to win.
Yeah, I think so. You got to go with the Packers. And unfortunately, as I've said before on previous shows and previous years, I do see Aaron Rodgers getting the Dan Marino treatment there in Green Bay, which is he is so fantastic, and they know that he can will the team to win, and he winds up not getting the pieces in place that he really needs to truly be a contender. He got to that one Super Bowl. He won that one Super Bowl, but still a lot of holes that need to be plugged. But, hey, it's Rodgers, and this is their division. I'm going with the Packers too. No doubt about it. And I'm as sure about this pick as I am about the New England Patriots winning the AFC East. This is going to be the Packers division to take.
Yeah, that's saying something because, the Patriots haven't had competition in, good 15 years in that division. So, yeah, that says a lot about Aaron Rodgers. I know everyone talks about Tom Brady being the GOAT, but Rodgers can manage to win another Super Bowl. I know he's not going to have as many rings as Tom, but he's going to be up there too. I think your Dan Marino analogy is excellent.
All right, here we go. So let's go head over to the NFC South where, hey, Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, as they like to call him, fresh off that Super Bowl collapse. He'll still be quarterbacking the Atlanta Falcons. Drew Brees, the most accurate thrower statistically in NFL history. And now he's got Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram in the backfield. So you thought their offense was explosive before. Just wait till this season. Jameis Winston continuing to prove in Tampa Bay. And then we've got Cam Newton, who I think that's going to be a tough year for Carolina and Cam Newton because of that shoulder injury, which they haven't talked a lot about. He hasn't thrown a lot in the preseason, but that injury, from what I understand, it does take a full year to completely heal from that surgery he had to have. So it could be a tough year for Cam Newton. And trying as far as testing his character too, because you know, the media is going to start talking as soon as he misses a few throws. They're going to talk about his confidence. They're going to talk about, was he a flash in the pan? All those types of things are going to come up.
Yeah, definitely. But I do think, and if you look at the AFC West, I think the NFC South is probably a close second in terms of top to bottom, most competitive in football. I think it's wide open, even with the Saints' issues on defense. You can't count Drew Brees out. I mean, they're an offensive machine. They lose Brandon Cooks, they'll plug someone else in there. They got Adrian Peterson to rotate at running back. Sean Payton, there are rumblings coming down out of the Big Easy down there that his job might be on the line, but you can never count him out as long as Drew Brees is his quarterback. That said, I don't think they're going to be a wild card team. With the Falcons, I think they revert to the mean. They come back to earth. They had a great run last year. I can't even talk about that Super Bowl because that choke was still such a monumental proportion that I can't even grasp it at times. But I do think playing a first-place schedule and the fact that they're going to have that weighing over their head, and you've got teams like the Buccaneers and the Panthers and the Saints gunning for you, I don't think they win that division. In my opinion, it's a two-team race. The Buccaneers, like you said, Winston's coming back. The signing of Deshaun Jackson is really going to be key for him because he's got a legitimate second target now. Teams can't key on Mike Evans. If you're watching the excellent HBO series Hard Knocks, you see that defense. Gerald McCoy's finally getting some national exposure. Guy is as phenomenal a defensive tackle as I've seen for a guy who's not like extremely tall, but just big and built. He's got unbelievable speed and footwork. Really cool to watch. I think their secondary's good. And then I think the Panthers bounce back, even if Cam's going to have shoulder injuries. I think Mike Shula down there is devising an offense with a lot of short passes, kind of like McVay's going to do for Jared Goff in LA. I think the X factor there is, as long as Luke Kuechly can stay on the field, that defense is really stout. And I really like the drafting of Christian McCaffrey. I think he adds a lot of dimensions, both as a runner and a receiver, and you're going to have to account for him in some respects, like a Darren Sproles, but I think he's an even better runner. So I think it comes down to those two teams. It's a toss-up. I guess I'd say the Buccaneers now, they seem to be the trendy pick, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised Carolina, with a last-place schedule, really comes and makes a move and gets back into the driver's seat there. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think with New Orleans being recharged, I think with Peterson in the backfield there with Ingram, and I'll be flying under the radar because they haven't been good in this last couple of seasons. But I think I'm going to go with New Orleans to win the division here in a shocker.
I like it. You're going all in.
Division pick?
Yeah, I think that's another division like the NFC East where teams beat up on each other and split, and it can come down to just a couple games. And look, I don't think you're crazy at all, but as long as if that defense holds up and there's no more bounties, of course, you could see the Saints putting together a 9-7, 10-6 type season. But I still think it's the Buccaneers division to lose. They made some strides last year. Jameis cuts down on the touchdowns, on the interceptions, and picks up the touchdowns. I think it's their division.
Yep, I will give you one piece of advice here. Everybody, when the Saints play, no matter who they're playing, if you just play the over every time, I guarantee you at the end of the season, you'll come out ahead. Because they're going to score a lot and they're going to give up a lot. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's flag football at its best.
Okay, so here we go, and we've picked the division winners, and so now it's that time. The NFC will be represented by one of which two teams, and then your dark horse. What do you think?
The Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals in a rematch of one of the greatest endings of an NFL playoff game I've ever seen in my blank years on Earth. I won't divulge my age. And my dark horse is going to be the Panthers. I think the Panthers bounce back this year. They make the Super Bowl? No, but I could see them making the playoffs even. Cam reverting to form. Maybe he'll get some sort of stem cell injection like athletes like to do. I don't know what will happen. Maybe he'll eat his Wheaties. But I just think with Christian McCaffrey, I think that offense bounces back this year.
Okay, we shall see. So no mention of the Dallas Cowboys, I noticed there. They're notably absent there from Mr. Lardieri.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think with the wild card race, especially in some of these weaker divisions, you look at like last year, what happened with the Lions almost backing into the wild card spot. I think you could see a scenario like that where if the the Bucks do end up winning the division, the Panthers are one of the wild cards. And then you look in the West, if the Cardinals win a division like I predict, odds are the Seahawks are in contention for a wild card. I don't see it them being a 6-10 team or anything like that. So you're going to have teams in some of these other divisions in the hunt, or who knows, maybe even your New Orleans Saints make a run at it if they don't win the division.
Well, that's who I'm picking when it's for the Super Bowl. I'm going to say it's going to be either Seattle or New Orleans that goes to the Super Bowl. And my dark horse is the New York Giants. And wouldn't we all love to see Eli and Tom Brady match up for a third time?
Oh, that would be great. I think only Tom Brady would not like to see that, but who's counting? Don't tell that to any Patriot fans.
All right, everybody. Remember, the show is NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. You can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Mr. Lardiera on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Chris, before we sign off, any final nuggets of wisdom here? You're going to be doing your first fantasy football segment next week.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, everyone, good luck with your draft. Like I said in the AFC preview, make the smart pick. Don't reach until the later rounds. Don't be drafting kickers and defenses in the middle of the draft, etc. On a side note, I don't want anyone to think that I've forgotten one of my favorite topics in all of the NFL, and that's our favorite commissioner, Roger Goodell. You know, he's had an interesting offseason. He saw the Chargers up and moved to LA and really didn't do too much about it. Then showed up at the first preseason game and was surprised at how small StubHub Center, a.k.a. a soccer stadium that seats approximately 27,000 was. Handed out the suspensions to Vontaze Burfict and Ezekiel Elliott, which were both subsequently appealed. On any number of things. You know, there's still issues with Roger. A lot of people like to criticize him. The NFL was so adamant about being in Vegas, and now all of a sudden he's got no problem with gambling or a team being in Sin City. And what does the NFL do? They give him a 5-year extension. You want to know why, Charles? Because at the end of the day, it's all about money. This new stadium in Inglewood, they're talking about the luxury boxes and how much PSLs will be. Ultimately, football is becoming a corporate event. They say, well, we want a stadium to be better than staying at home. Well, why wouldn't I stay at home when the TV's just as good? I can get my own food, and I don't have to pay just for the right to buy tickets and trek out somewhere and pay for parking, etc. So, you know, good for Roger. I mean, he's in the right business. Got to hand it to him. More power to him. On a side note, the Falcons are opening this new Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta with a retractable roof, state of the art. I've got to hand it to Arthur Blank. The guy made a concerted effort to keep concession and food and beer prices down and reasonable to what they are in the greater Atlanta area, and he's not changing it. You know, the guy knows he's making enough money as it is. He wants fans to be able to bring their families and enjoy the game. I shouldn't have to give him kudos, but props to you, Arthur Blank.
And from what I understand, there will be no crowd noise pumped into that new stadium. And, you know, I was going to make a reference there to it being all about the Benjamins when you said Goodell, but I couldn't get a $100 bill for a prop because I only had $94 in my checking account. So, hey, you know, it just didn't work out.
Well, you could always, you know, keeping with the Carolina Panthers theme, because you always just show a picture of Kelvin Benjamin.
All right, everybody. So that's it for this Inside Sports production of NFL Football Talk. Make sure you join us next week. We'll be doing the picks of the week, fantasy football segment, and all the latest NFL news. For Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next week. Okay.